Hello and welcome back to the Kindness Code. My name is Carmel and I'm here with the wonderful Chelsea Bailey. Today we are going to be talking about disclosures. It's quite a big and potentially heavy topic. Chelsea, what do we mean by just disclosures?
Disclosures are when a child chooses to share something significant with us. So it is big, and it doesn't matter how big or small that disclosure might feel. It's significant to the child and they've made a decision to share it with you.
Because this was one of the things that happened. I hadn't been long with the care homes, and a fantastic young youth mentor had a beautiful connection with a young person. They'd gone on a big outing, and the young person made a deeply sad, deeply serious, deeply heavy disclosure to the youth mentor, who was only about 23, 24 herself. And I thought, wow, what do you do? The fact that you have to stay calm, you can't react. But how difficult is that? And so if anyone working with looked after children or working with children in any capacity, something really heavy lands, what do they do?
Mm-hmm. So I think before we talk about what you should do, I think that you need to have an understanding of what might be going on for the young person, which will then help you to respond. So I think that's probably the first thing to talk about. So if a child's chosen to make a disclosure to you, you might have not been around very long. You might not know this young person very well. So that might feel like a good way for a young person to tell you something. You don't really know that much about me. Or it could be that you're a really trusted person and you've got an ongoing relationship with this young person, and so they feel safe in telling you. But I think the thing to remember when a child gives you something big is it's really courageous of them. And that might have taken them a really long time to build up that courage to say what that is out loud. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter how big or how small, it's significant to them and it's been heavy for them and they've chosen to share it. So I think that's really important. And some of the reasons that children don't share, or that maybe when they do share some of the feelings that they are feeling is, they're feeling scared, they're anxious of the response. They maybe are worried about consequences of, if I share this, somebody might be in trouble, I might be in trouble, what might happen? They maybe are feeling feelings of shame and embarrassment, feelings that don't belong to them, but feelings that are theirs nonetheless. So, they're worried about what might you think about me? This might change your opinion of me. So there's all these feelings, and they also might be telling you something, it could be of past harm that they've come by, for example, and that might involve somebody that they love. And there's a battle then of, well, I don't want to get this person in trouble, or I promised I would never tell, or it can be any of those things, and that can feel massive. So I think what's really important for step one is to recognise, wow, this child has just shared something big with me. So now how I respond really, really matters. It doesn't matter how much you investigate. It matters how much you listen and how much safety you can create for the young person with carrying what they're giving you.
It is so powerful, understanding the multitude of emotions that this child's gone through, and then to actually, because everything you just talked about is huge for this child, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then to confide in someone who they may have built a really good relationship with. What motivates a child? What not motivates or even triggers a child to actually make that disclosure?
I don't think it's any one reason. I think that they're carrying it around and they want to get it out, and it could be to test out relationships. So it could be that, it might be that they disclose something that to you think, oh gosh, I that's new information to me, but it might not be new information, and we share it, and then that's actually information that's already been held. And so they're just kind of testing, okay, Carmel, if I tell you this, how are you going to react?
Are you still going to be there for me?
Yeah. Are you going to feel different about me? Or is it going to freak you out? Or are you going to think I'm bad? And I always say to children, and I always have, there is nothing you could ever tell me that would ever make me feel any differently about you. And I mean it to my core. And they say, what about if it was this? And what about if it was that? And they, they'll say things that are quite abstract and I say, no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I'm going to say, if you tell me, because they say, what if I said I did something really bad? I say, well, then we'll have to talk that through and address it. But how I feel about you won't change, and I'm still here. And that's really reassuring and what they need to hear.
That could be a whole nother podcast. Yeah. We didn't talk about it. And so I want to explore everything. But actually, I think for now, I would love people listening to this who, if they're in that situation, and even though we've talked about it, I didn't even know that I would fully know how to respond in the situation, because when someone tells you something that's deeply sad or hurtful or heavy, you'd probably want to fix it. But actually, that's not what we do, is it?
No, it isn't, and we mustn't try. It doesn't need fixing. When they're sharing, they need somebody to listen. And I think, there can be some really common responses that are not helpful, and it's not, it's kind of instinctive. And so it's important to be aware of it, so that when you are starting to, okay, this child's making a disclosure to me, you can kind of tune in to yourself and create some awareness, because what we may be, so some common responses.
Sorry, I just want to hold that. That is so big. When you go, it should be like a red light flashing. This is a disclosure. Take a breath, stay centered, and know that you have to be deeply present.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because if we go back to adults, don't we? If an adult tells you something, you go, oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
This is not the response.
No. So that's a prime example of a response that isn't helpful. So we can go into shock or panic. Oh my God, this is really, really bad. I can't believe that's happened. You poor thing, and we just kind of go into panic, because it might be something really big. It might be something really shocking, and it might be something that you're really worried about, but that's not for the young person. And what that is going to do is going to make them feel overwhelmed. It's going to send them back into shame or panic or worry. So the big reactions are not helpful, the shock, the panic.
This feels that the people working with children who may have a big disclosure, it's such a big thing. And it hopefully doesn't happen too often.
Yeah.
So stay calm, stay highly alertly present. Don't have any big reaction. So you've managed to do all that.
Yeah.
Then what?
So we're just thinking about what not to do. So that's helpful to know, because like I say, you need to bring that awareness. It's almost like shifting a gear. Okay, I'm kind of shifting into listening mode. Our job isn't to investigate. So, if we start asking lots of questions, that's going to overwhelm them. If we downplay it, the opposite of a big reaction and a shocking reaction, to kind of go, oh, that's all right, that might invalidate how they're feeling, and them kind of going, oh, right, why did I think it was such a big deal? Then maybe it was, so take emotion out where you can, but we want to validate. So some more helpful responses. Again, we're going to listen. We are going to tune in, and we're going to hold space. We do not need to investigate and get all of the details. We need to let the child share with us what it is that they are choosing to share. So we're just going to just listen and say, it's okay, you can tell me. I'm here to listen.
And maybe we can put this in the show notes. Like there's three different sentences we could say. Mm-hmm. So a child makes, let's imagine it's something pretty heavy and shocking. Mm-hmm. When we've kind of arranged our face, we've stayed centered, we've taken a breath, we've changed gear and gone, this is real, I've got to be deeply present. What do we literally say as a next, what are one or two things we could, or questions that we're ready to listen? What do we say?
So we don't want to ask any leading questions, so that's important. So as I say, we're not investigating, so no leading questions, but we might say some kind of reassuring statements, or allow them to tell us more if they would like. So we can say things like, would you like to tell me anything else? Would you like to tell me any more about that? So it's the ball's in your court. Do you want to? If it's no, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. You might be thinking, oh my God, well, I need to know the name of that person and where it was. No, you don't need to. Would you like to tell me anything else? We can say, that sounds like that must have been really difficult, really hard, really scary. We can validate those feelings. But what we're not going to do is ask leading questions that require an answer, and we're not going to investigate and prod. We're going to just go at their pace and allow them to just offload in any way that they feel that they need to. We're not going to make any promises either. That's something that we need to be careful of, because that can break trust. So what we're not going to do is, but please don't tell anyone, and we say, yeah, that's okay, I won't.
So let's say we say, hey, how does that make you feel? Or is there anything else you'd like to tell me? So we ask very, very gentle questions that don't invalidate them, but we don't dramatise it either, and we're not investigating. And then I guess often there is because there's a level of shame and fear of getting other people in trouble. So they say, if I tell you this, you can't tell anyone. What do we say then, Chelsea?
Yeah. We can say things like, I understand that you don't want this to be shared. It feels very private to you. There might be people that I am going to have to tell to make sure you're safe, but that person will be. So, for example, it might be your manager, your safeguarding lead, if it's a safeguarding matter. So you say, I am going to have to tell X, Y, Z, but it's going to be kept with them, and I'm going to make sure that you're safe. That isn't going to break trust. It's going to build relational safety. That young person knows that you're going to have to share it. You're not going to go and, it's not a point of gossip, and that's what they don't want it to be. You're not going to go and sit in the office and chat about it to everybody. Can you believe it? We're gonna follow protocol, and the people that need to know will be informed.
And I guess that's where if you tell, like if you say it's going to be the manager, Sally, whatever the name is, and usually the child have a very good relationship with the home manager because that's their job. And so when it's one person, one specific person, or the safeguarding lead, then it's not, I'm going to have to tell people, I'm going to tell that person.
Yeah, and then we can say, it's entirely up to you who you tell. So I'm going to tell this person because I have to, because I have to care for your safety. But outside of that, it's not for me to share. And, that young person can tell, because you might find that they'll then they feel safer now. Okay, I've got that off my chest, and it feels a little bit lighter, and they might start to tell other people, etc. But that's fine. But we mustn't make promises to keep secrets and things like that, because that is what's going to break your trust, even though it might feel like a trusting thing to do. We all know it isn't.
And that's quite common for the young person to say, I'm going to tell you, but you can't tell anyone.
Yeah. And again, it's going to release feelings of shame. If we tell them, I understand that you don't want me to tell anyone. However, if we say, oh gosh, yeah, no, don't worry, I won't tell anyone, that kind of reinforces like, oh yeah, good, because it's quite shameful, isn't it? Like we shouldn't tell anyone about that. And that's not true. That's not true. And any shame that they're carrying around, it doesn't belong to them, So, yeah, we mustn't make those promises is the key message there.
How likely is it that a young person, if you had a great relationship with them and the environment was right and you asked gentle questions that weren't investigative or shaming, that actually they would tell you an awful lot more? Or does that generally not happen?
It can happen. It can happen. It might not happen all at once. It might happen over the next few days. It might happen in that moment. They might, there might not be any room to tell you anything else. They might just offload everything. So, that's why we just take a gentle approach. We're creating a safe space for them. They can see that you can handle it. Okay, Carmel is calm. She's not overreacting. She's not making me feel embarrassed. She's not making me feel nervous or worried. I feel like I could say a little bit more. And, just that message, there's nothing that you can't tell me. If you want to tell me, I'm here for you. I will always keep you safe. I'm going to listen. I'm never going to change how I feel about you. When you're ready, I'm here. That's the message.
That is beautiful. And I guess that's so important, is to just say, whatever you say isn't going to make me feel differently about you, because I bet most of these children have dealt with shame and fear constantly. So assuming that we've managed to go through all these things, then what happens? So say we're out with a young person and there's been, we've dealt with the situation pretty well, but there's been some fairly heavy stuff disclosed. Then what do we do?
So you're going to have to try and remember as much as you can. That is really important, because we are going to have to record it and we are going to have to report it. So again, you want to the main focus while you're with the child, if you're out, if you're out and about doing whatever you're doing, just create as much normality as you can for them. You hold space, and then you let the day carry on. You kind of attune to their emotions and how they're feeling. If it's feeling really heavy, we might go home. We might stop and have a sit somewhere. We're going to just continue to support the young person in whichever way that they need. But when we're back in the setting, so if that's back at the home, for example, then you're going to have to follow your safeguarding procedures, and you're going to have to write down as much information as you can. So the advice there is record everything that you can remember as factually as you can and as close to the words of the child as possible. You then report that to your safeguarding lead, your manager, and then if it is a safeguarding matter, then those protocols will be actioned, and we'll go into safeguarding mode around that. but away from the young person. The aftercare for the young person is really important. So going back to that normality, you know, you've shared something big with me, just so you know I'm here. If there's anything else you need to share, I'm here. When you're ready, I'm ready. But normality resumes. We don't treat that child any differently. We don't tiptoe around them or respond in different ways, or, you know, they need to feel that we can carry that stuff and that it's okay and that life continues as normal around them. And we're going to lean in when they need our support. We're going to lean in if, you know, if they need some more one-to-one time, you know, however that looks for them and what feels right for them. But ultimately, it's really important for the child to feel safe, that they know that the adult that they've trusted with their information is going to continue to care for them in the same way that they always have.
That if a child has trusted you, you've got to think, wow, you're doing something right. Is that would that be fair? Is that? Yeah,
I think it is fair, and it's, you know, it's heavy stuff, you know, and it doesn't matter, you know, when we talk about this, you know, I think it's natural our minds kind of go to the worst thing we can think of, but it's not, it might not be that, you know, it might be, but to the young person it is significant and it is big, and they have to.
Sorry, I just want I'm learning so much, my head is exploding, and I still think it's so difficult that if a child makes disclosure, you've got to do all these things: stay present, stay calm, ask the right questions, and then remember everything, and then get the child home safely or into a place that you can record it all. So it feels like it's a lot going on there. And especially if you're working with young people, it might trigger you, or it might be difficult. So we're thinking about really major disclosures, but I think this is the next important thing. It might be something you think, that's nothing. But actually, to that child, and especially to a looked after child, it could be a big deal.
Yeah.
So can we just explore that a little bit, when it feels like something you think, it's not a big deal, but to be able to tune in that it is a disclosure, and how do we react when it's not something that maybe we think is a big deal?
The same, you know, we do all of the same things. So those steps, that remaining calm, giving a safe space, not reacting in a big or small way, but just responding consistently, not investigating, but listening, validating that, you know, how do you feel about that? You know, do you want to tell me anything else about all those things? Remain. And we still record it and we still write it down, because it might be the start of a bigger disclosure, for example. And they're just testing, I'm just going to give you a little bit of this and see, and it might not feel that big, and you might think, okay, well, that's not. But then actually, as the days go on, there might, you know, that might be building to something. So
it might just be a test. I'm testing your trust. I'm testing what
you're going to do with it, how you're going to handle it. Exactly. So yeah, and it can be hard, and it's not, you know, I always say I make everything sound very easy, and it's not necessarily, you know, it might be distressing. And I think it's a really good point actually that you made there, that it can. I'm saying, you know, you need to be really calm, and you don't investigate it, and don't do this, don't do that, and just stay present. And that is all true, but that doesn't, you know, that your head could be feeling very fast and overloaded and overwhelmed, and you're thinking, you know, you might be feeling quite concerned. And so it is really important as well for the adults to lean in on the channels that they have for their own support too. So we're doing everything that we need to for the child first, and we're going to, you know, support them. Then we're going to record, report, follow any safeguarding measures around it that are necessary. Then it's really important that you have a debrief, that you use your supervisions. It might bring up stuff for you. It might trigger some feelings in you. And it's really important that you are able to use the channels that you have to offload that, so you're not carrying it with you, because, you know, one, we don't want you carrying that and it having an emotional impact on you and day-to-day feeling quite tricky, and we don't want you carrying that going home, things like that. But we also don't want it to spill out into your practice with the children, you know, because, you know, it really could.
And I guess around the idea of honesty and support, because a lot of people come and work in care that maybe have had some stuff going on in their own lives, and that's why they're driven to go and help others. I guess if it has triggered something that you have some parallels in your own life, is it a good idea in your supervision to disclose that and share that with a manager or someone who can support you?
I think if there's something going on for you that has been triggered by something that happens at work, if you feel like you can, and there is a safe, trusted person like your supervisor that you feel you can share it with, then it would be helpful, so that you can access the right support. Because yeah, you're right, you know, this kind of work can bring up all sorts of things for us. And so just know that you have a really good team of people around you that are there to support you, and to people that are in management positions and beyond in this industry, you know, the messaging to those people, which is also us, is to make sure that the foundations for those structures are in place, and that is really, really important. You know, we do loads and loads of work with making sure that's in place for the children via our staff, but we have to have the structure in place to support our team so that they are feeling held, supported, looked after, and that their well-being matters.
I guess that's important almost if the same philosophies, if a staff member makes a disclosure to a manager, the manager has to almost, it's the same thing. I mean, shout out to Niche Care Homes. We have an independent counsellor who's completely private, and so really supporting staff. So not only if they've got their own things going on, we've got someone to talk to them. And I guess it is so important because it's a tough job. Yeah. The more I learn about it, I go, oh my God, this job is so difficult. So difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
It's difficult because it's care. And, you know, you're caring deeply all of the time. And, you know, the people in this industry are incredible because they want to be there to make a difference and to care deeply. But the mental load of that, you know, it can be a lot. And, you know, most of the time, you know, it's not like that. And you're not having these big heavy days and it's light and it's fun and it's gorgeous. But you will have days where it's been heavy and it's been tough. You know, as you do if you're a parent, you know, you have days that you think, wow, today was a tough day. And you need to use your outlets to stay well and make sure your cup is full too.
I love this episode because I just think there's so much in it. We're keeping them bite-sized because just to kind of remind people and to give them tips. But the disclosures is why I started the Kindness Code training platform, because I thought I would have no idea what to do in the best way. And the more I've learned about it, the more I thought I probably wouldn't. I would have been trying to fix it and solve it. And actually that's not it. And so now we've got a training platform where people can practice what you would say, so we can embed the disclosures happen. I've got to do all these things, and then what is actually going to come out of my mouth? What am I actually going to say? Because it's all very well to sit here and listen to this and do training, but actually, what is it when in the moment when it's heightened and there's emotion, and you know, it might have been a bit of a left field kind of a situation. So it's really interesting. The disclosures is why I started the Kindness Code training platform, so that people could say the words out loud in all different scenarios, because there are endless scenarios. And
endless.
You know, I'm sure you've been doing the 10, 15 years, and there's still things have happened that you think, oh, that's never happened before.
Yeah, always.
Again, I've loved this. It feels like we could probably talk about this, and you know, there's so much training around the safeguarding and disclosures. But we're back to the top tips again, Chelsea, because I say tip, but it feels like to distill this down into one tip might be challenging. But what is the top takeaway to anyone listening to this to feel safe and ready in case a child trusts them with a disclosure?
Create safety, listen, no big reactions, and to remember that our job is to hold space and create safety and not investigate. I think that's a really, really important message. And to also remember that by doing this, you are then further embedding and building safety, relational safety and relationships with the children. They're choosing to share something really big with you. And that's massive, you know? So, recognizing that this is going to be built on trust, and that we're not investigators. We're here to hold space, listen, and create safety.
Thank you once again, Chelsea, for being on this care journey with me, making me a better, kinder person. And I hope people listening, just taking some of this away about being better, kinder people, and just thank you for everyone for all the hard work you do in such a challenging space. And
absolutely.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.